Hello, everyone. This is Tim Bogats. Over the next 2 weeks, we will play a couple of episodes from the podcast archives. If you are dying to listen to something brand new, please check out The Art of SEL, an amazing podcast about social and emotional learning in the art room that is hosted by Jonathan Jurovich. And, of course, Nick Hahn publishes the Everyday Art Room podcast every Thursday. You can find them both on the Art of Education University website. Today's episode is an episode about teacher self-care from 2019 with Elizabeth Peterson. This was recorded pre-pandemic, and obviously things have changed a lot since then, but I think the conversation is good, and I think she has a lot of quality advice. So I hope you can find some words of wisdom in this conversation that are able to help you no matter how your year has been or where you are right now. So here is Self-Care for the Art Teacher with Elizabeth Peterson. All right, and Elizabeth Peterson is back on the podcast joining me now. Elizabeth, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Tim?
I am doing great as well.
Good.
I feel like we have a lot to talk about. I think self-care is a really important topic, especially this time of year.
Certainly is.
But before we dive into that, I want to ask you about social and emotional artistic learning. It's something that we talk about a lot. It's something you and I have talked about before. It's important in art rooms, and it really applies to our students. So I guess I want to ask you how much you think the ideas behind social and emotional artistic learning apply to us as teachers. Like, how much should we as teachers think about our emotions and how we deal with them in the course of our teaching?
Yeah. So I'm so glad you're starting with this idea of thinking about our emotions and how we deal with them, because I really believe that if we're expected to help our students navigate their emotions and develop their social emotional skills, then we really need to do the same for ourselves. And I truly believe that there is no better way to do this than with art. And so social emotional artistic learning, or SEAL, is something I developed through the Inspired Classroom, as there is just such a natural connection between the arts and social emotional learning. And that's just no surprise to any art teacher, right? So with SEAL, there's a major focus on the teacher. And that's for two reasons. One, if the teachers are going to integrate art concepts with developing social emotional skills, then they need to understand how that works firsthand. So that's where the idea of teacher-centered PD comes in. So teachers are really learning SEAL strategies by actually doing them. And two, there's a huge focus on the teacher when it comes to SEAL, because teachers are the ones in front of the kids. And how we conduct ourselves and how we set up our classrooms can really help determine the success of our students. So SEAL is developed in a way that is meant to empower teachers. And, let's face it, teachers are dealing with a lot of pressures in our jobs more than ever before. And it's a mix. It's a mix of paperwork and testing and schedules and feeling like your content isn't valued. And then, of course, there are our students, and they're coming to us with a lot more baggage than ever, and so many emotions that are really affecting their day-to-day lives, let alone their learning. And of course, that affects us. And I think that's partially because teachers can't necessarily teach their content if their students aren't emotionally there, and that will certainly wear on a teacher. And also because of how students' emotions affect their behaviors in class, and that can really wear on a teacher. And, many of us are not equipped with the tools to deal with this necessarily in our classrooms. So it's really important to step back and recognize how this is actually affecting us and to start taking care of ourselves. So I'm a big proponent of taking care of teachers first, because whatever we bring to our classrooms is going to affect our students. And we want to be, or actually need to be, positive and caring and confident to have success in reaching our students. So it's not about, are you a good teacher, or you can't handle this, or maybe you're not cut out for this job. It's so much more. What's happening in our classrooms and in our schools is just affecting us more and more. And teachers are starting to understand that it's truly time to stand up for yourself and take care of yourself, because unfortunately, in too many instances, no one else is doing it for you. So teacher burnout is just so real, and it's really felt by the best in our profession.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that is way more common than we think, and, I've talked about it before. I've felt it before. And I think for a lot of us, for a lot of teachers, it's really starting to build up right now. Like you said, we're dealing with so much. Our students were dealing with so much, and it builds and builds. So I want to go back to what you said about standing up for ourselves and take care of ourselves. Because as we move into this holiday season, people are getting busier, both at home and at work. You're feeling the stress, you're feeling overwhelmed by everything that needs to be done. So I guess the question for you is why, as we're dealing with all this, why do you think self-care is so important? Why do we need to pay special attention to that now?
Yeah. So I actually think it's become like a societal thing almost. We're living in a society that just puts so much on us. We're expected to do it all, whether it's to raise a good family, work a full-time job, put organic food on the table, design your home so it looks like a magazine. And of course, there's, posting pictures to social media that looks like you're always active and having fun and doing these great things. But we're not meant to do it all. We're meant to be part of a community that works together. And so I think it's become just so necessary for us to stop ourselves and purposefully take care of ourselves. And, this is a time where we should be enjoying ourselves and spending quality time with loved ones and taking a look at and focusing on those important things in life. And to do that, we really need to stop and look inward first.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, because it is, just so important to be able to enjoy this. And I guess I'd like to talk about, how this applies to art teachers specifically, because, as we kind of dive into this topic, I know you've talked a lot about self-care for those of us that are creative, creative people. Why do you think there should be a special importance placed on self-care for those of us who are creative people?
Yeah, so creative people, they just really tend to put their heart into their work, whether it's projects they design or lessons they create, their hearts are just really in it. And when you have a creative person who's also an educator, and by educator, I mean a person who cares enough to devote their entire career to teaching and encouraging and molding young minds. So when you have that, emotions certainly play a role in what you're doing every day. And with that, I feel like creative educators, they just want their students to participate in what they've created for them and to find some success in that as well, whether it be in the product or the process to get there. So the idea of putting so much of ourselves in our work can really pose a challenge when we are working with students and in some cases adults too, who pull so much from us on a daily basis. So I hear from art teachers all the time, and it's obvious how much of themselves they're just really investing in their work. It's just what they do. So the good part, though, is that creative people also have an edge, because the act of being creative, of course, is a natural stress release. So making time to create for your own good is really beneficial. And it could be creating visual art, but it could also be music or dancing or writing a poem or a story or creating a video. Whatever you create, it doesn't matter, but making time to create certainly does. And you can use that as part of your self-care.
Okay, yeah, that's really good advice. And now I guess I'd like to talk just a little bit more about specifics, I guess, as far as
Sure.
self-care. So I know you've put a lot of thought into this. Do you have, maybe just a few specific things that people can do? Just any quick tips for teacher self-care?
Yeah, so I actually have like 5 tips that I like to share with all kinds of teachers. So the first one has to do with physical well-being, and that is, what you eat, what you drink, sleeping and moving. And this really refers to things that everyone, not just teachers, but anyone who's stressed really needs to remember. These are the things that we already know, but we tend to lose focus on. So that's part of why I mention it first, because it really does lay the groundwork for everything else. Um, when I'm super stressed or feeling overwhelmed, I know that I need to take a step back and look at what I actually need. And sometimes it's sleep. And by that, I actually mean maybe taking a 10-minute nap in the middle of the day when I get home.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, not drinking as much coffee and replacing it with water. Or it might mean just taking 30 minutes to go for a walk. So our physical well-being really just drives everything else. Um, Secondly, intellectual well-being is really important for us to keep in mind. And that's really caring for your mind. So it might be finding like a reflective practice that's right for you, whether it might be writing or painting or journaling, sketching. It could be listening to music or meditating, or doing some movement like running or dancing. It could be looking for and reading books and articles that really feed your mind, both professionally and personally. And, keeping in mind that we are professionals. So taking a course, looking for the right kind of course or workshop that's really going to feed your mind or challenge you or stretch your thinking. And that's why I'm a firm believer in and only provide teacher-centered professional development, because that's what's really going to focus in on what you need. And I know that that's what you guys do at Art of Ed University.
Hmm.
It's all
Hmm.
practical and meaningful learning that's really going to help teachers' brains grow. So intellectual is really important. Okay, number 3 is a really concrete one, but it doesn't mean it's an easy one. And it's leave. Yeah, so leave your work at work. And I know this is really hard for so many people because we feel like if we don't get it done at school, we'll just take it home. But the
Yes.
trick is making that a rare occasion, like during a report card season or something like that, instead of the normal thing that you do. So this might include, papers to correct or reports to write, curriculum work or planning, and emails. Leaving
Yes.
all that stuff kind of at work, right? And for some teachers, taking home a few things will actually help them. So you really need to know yourself and be self-aware of what your needs are. So you kind of want to take a moment and just list the things that you do and maybe see what you can truly leave at work, and ask yourself some of these questions like, will bringing things home take more time from my family than I want it to? Is it going to stress me out even more? Or is it actually going to help me feel more prepared for the next day? So you really have to do your own thing there to, see if that's actually going to help you or stress you out even more.
Yeah.
um, yeah. Number 4 is modifying your expectations. And some teachers have a hard time with this one. So hear me
Yes.
out on this.
Okay.
All right. So it's not about lowering your expectations. It's not about, I'm talking more about changing the quality. I'm not talking about the changing of your quality of work or expecting less from your students in terms of quality, or the changing the teaching that you're providing. So it might mean instead modifying the quantity of work that you're assigning. cutting down on pieces that make up the assignment, or it might be changing the assignment or lessening the load of work you expect from a class, which could actually produce higher quality in the end. It might be changing the way you assess or grade something. So you might go from an elaborate rubric to maybe a checkmark system. And, this might be something that you just do for one or two assignments or every once in a while. It doesn't have to be for everything, but just think of how you can modify or lessen things for yourself. It might also mean seeing a student in a new light and really understanding what he or she is actually capable of. Because we know that students are very different from one another, and they may need a different approach to a lesson or a technique or a project. I know I have some students that have certain things that just trigger them. And you may not see when it's coming. So being able to have that open mind to understand that sometimes you need to just modify things and it's okay. And of course, this is something that could be done through the SPED teachers if the students are on an IEP plan. But unfortunately, that doesn't always happen in the art room, right? So you have to be okay with just making modifications or even asking for help, because there's nothing wrong with calling for reinforcements.
Yes.
Yeah, but none of this means that you take away things that bring you joy. So those are the things you're naturally going to want to do and do with so much quality, and you're really going to put your heart into it. So even if it's a huge undertaking, you want to keep those things. I'm talking about modifying the things that give you stress and make the job no fun, because we should be having fun while we're teaching. And, here's the thing. So trimming things back can sometimes be seen as throwing in the towel. But what really is happening here is that we're adapting to these new times. And I really think that in the last 5 years or so, things have been changing in education. And we can't really teach the same way we did even 5 years ago. So it's okay to adapt with the times and modify your expectations of ourselves and our students. So it's almost like giving yourself permission to step back and see what your students actually need and then go from there. Make sense?
Yes, for sure. That's really good.
Yeah, good. And I do have one more, number 5, and it has to do with emotional well-being. And I think the first thing with doing that is so simple. It's just smile. Find reasons to smile. Greet your students at the door. Go find colleagues that you can have a good conversation with. Or sometimes just smile just because. Science says if you smile, even if you're faking it, it can actually bring you up a little bit. And also finding a venting buddy. Okay, so this is a good idea where you have one person that you can just let it out on, the whole 9 yards, stories from the classroom, venting about paperwork and deadlines, eye rolling, everything. And the reason to have just one is because, well, firstly, you want to make sure that person is trustworthy and keeps things kind of between the two of you. And you don't want to let your venting become like gossiping to everybody, because this is not really about gossiping. This is about being able to be human and just let it out when you need to. And the other thing with emotional well-being is finding a community that you can have intellectual conversations or share with one another. And there are just so many options out there, face-to-face, through Facebook and Twitter. Art of Ed has great online communities to join. And I love my Inspiring Teachers community on Facebook because we share favorite things and ideas and laughs. And it's just a great place and a great way to stay positive.
Yeah.
So those are my 5 tips there.
No, those are really, really good tips. And I think, yeah, I love having concrete examples for people and just really clear ideas about what they can do to, kind of take care of themselves. And I guess, the next question I have after that is we talk about all of these preventative measures, like how to avoid getting into that proverbial rut.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess my question for you is like, what if someone is already feeling drained? They're already feeling burnt out. Do you think it's worth following that same advice, following those same tips, or is there a different approach that they should take?
Yeah, so this is a really good question because this is where so many teachers are and where they're finding themselves. We're not in a preventative mode. Many teachers are in that state of just being drained and on the verge of real burnout. So I think of it this way.
Hmm.
Um, I'm going to a classic here. Ready? Stop, look, and listen. So
Yeah.
first, yeah, exactly,
Nice.
right? So first, you want to stop and breathe and just take a moment to look at where you currently are and what you're doing. And think about what it is about the task or the situation that is draining you or stressing you out. So, look at your situation and think about if you can change anything about it. Can you move to a new location? Can you toss a pile of papers into the recycling bin? I've been known to do that. you know, Ask another person to help you out. Or can you put something off until you can look at what's in front of you with some fresh eyes? And then you really want to listen to your body and figure out what it is you need. Do you need a night off of work? Do you need a mental health day? Do you need to free up your schedule somehow? Do you need some time for fun? You need to go out? Do you need a nap? There have been times where I've come home, like I have already confessed to, where I come home and I set my phone on a timer for 15 minutes, and I just like, okay, mama needs a nap. But then there are other days that I pass Dunkin' Donuts on the way home, and I'm like, today I can't nap, I need a coffee. So just kind of knowing what you need. Um, Maybe you need to take care of your body, go to a yoga class or get a massage. A few weeks ago, my shoulders, I was so stressed out and frustrated that my shoulders were literally in pain, not just like uncomfortable. Oh, I need a stretch. Like I was standing up and just being in such pain. And so I did something that I have always thought was such a luxury. And I decided, okay,
Hmm.
maybe I'm going to try out this massage thing. And I'm so glad I did. And now I'm going to try to make that just a monthly thing because I think that's what I need. So when you listen to your body, you need to then make a plan. So consider what your goals are for yourself, what you hope for yourself, and what you need. Um, the way I think about it is, we all came into education to make a difference, but you can't be of service to others if you're not okay yourself. So you need to stop
Hmm.
and reflect on what's happening. Are there things you can take off your plate? Um, is there an app that's going to help you to sleep? What kind of music is going to make you feel good? Um, Maybe set up a small space in your home or your classroom even to create in your favorite medium. Or talk to someone or journal about it. And if you're a social being, schedule an outing for yourself with your friends or your spouse. So basically, just stop, look, and listen to what you need and then make it happen. It's really important that you take that opportunity to just really make it happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so with all of that advice, it's great advice, by the way. But
Thank you.
we kind of need to wrap things up. So I was hoping, that you could maybe just leave us with some parting words, or do you have some advice for everybody out there? After they're done listening to this episode of the podcast, what should they go out and do?
Okay, so there's this idea out there about putting your oxygen mask first And it comes from those instructions we're given when we board an airplane, how the stewardess talks us through an emergency situation, the oxygen masks fall, and we're all instructed to put our mask on first before we help others put theirs on. And the same is true here. We need to take care of ourselves first so that we can truly be helpful to those around us. So I think people really need to take that to heart and fully understand that when they are taking care of themselves, they're not being selfish. They're actually doing what's right so that they can further help others, whether it's our students, our families, and other people around us. So, and I did put together a fun resource for our listeners today. It's a teacher self-care list. And it lists 30 different things that you can do to take care of yourself. And I separated it into things you can do daily, weekly, or monthly to just focus on what you need. And it's actually one of the resources from my SEAL teacher training, where I teach methods of integrating arts with social emotional learning. And the entire first phase of that course is about SEAL teacher mindset and how to really take care of yourself in your classroom first. So this can be found. The website is theinspiredclassroom.com/self-care, just one word. And I think that your listeners will find it helpful. I hope they do.
Yeah, I definitely think they will. We'll make sure we link to it in the show notes too, so everybody can find that really easily.
Great. Thank you. Excellent.
Elizabeth, thank you so much. It's been great talking to you. I think this is an important message at this time of year, and I think all of your advice is going to be really, really helpful for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you. I think this is really such great, important work, because if we're taking care of ourselves, then we're better able to take care of our students. So I appreciate the time to come on and talk to you, Tim.
All right. Awesome. Hopefully we can have you on again soon.
All right. Sounds good.